I used to be into some fucked up shit when it came to the internet. Now I can't even look at a computer without feeling sick to my stomach. That glowing window into digital infinity now feels like a gateway to hell. My obsession with the macabre started when I was 12. I would spend nights at my friend's house. His name was Paul Fender, and unlike myself, Paul came from a very wealthy family. The kind of wealth that came with an indoor pool and a 4-digit key code. In all honesty, Paul was a bite-sized chunk of dog shit. Whenever he'd invite me over, the better part of my stay would consist of Paul showing me all of the new shiny things that his parents had purchased him between the gaps of time separating my last stay. "Look, don't touch," could have been his catchphrase. I only endured Paul's antics for the perks, and boy, were there a lot of them. The weekends that I spent playing Popper to the Prince were also weekends that I got to live the high life at the Kade Fender, a wishful luxury if you grew up with the penny-pitching folks like mine. When Paul wasn't jacking off to his own ego, he was jacking off to Amber, his father's Barbie doll of a trophy wife. Fake tits, tight ass, and a birth date that placed her in diapers right around the same time Mr. Fender was filing for his first divorce. The driving force behind Paul's lotion addiction has less to do with his stepmom's physical presence and more to do with her acting abilities. That's because before Amber met Paul's father, she was a certificated spank tape starlet with a body of work that encompassed over 50 titles. It was an admirable trait for someone who had just turned 21. After meeting her future husband during an intoxicated romp through Vegas, Amber turned her back on a life of gangbangs and gag suppression techniques. Instead of fucking multiple guys for money, she'd only have to fuck one. Paul told me how he accidentally discovered the details of Amber's former life when he found a collection of X-rated movies hidden away in his father's closet. Every single one of those VHS tapes displayed Amber in dozens of explicit positions, performing every sex act imaginable. Paul hit the jackpot. Being the rich bastard that he was, his bedroom came complete with a big screen TV and an entertainment center. In the following months, he had cycled through nearly all of the titles. He'd wait until everyone in the house was asleep, then fire up the VCR. I'd only ever seen brief snippets of the opening credits before he'd shove me out of the room into the dimly lit hallway. Like clockwork, he'd lock the door a few seconds after I was out, leaving me to wander the quiet house until the door was unlocked again. He could have stayed in his room for all I cared. Any time he was playing with himself meant he didn't have to play with me. The last night I spent at Paul's had gone pretty much according to schedule. By midnight, I'd resumed my routine of exploring the house while Paul continued, turning his room into an abstract painting. I had only made it halfway down the hall when the door to Paul's room unlocked, then opened. Not long after, Paul emerged with a wide-eyed, blank expression. I tried to speak to him, only he wouldn't answer. He just continued walking past me as if I were invisible. He had only been a few feet past me when he started screaming. I know it couldn't have been that long, but in my memory, the screams seemed to last for hours. First, the live-in maid showed up to find out what was wrong. Then Paul's father came down the stairs with his confused-looking stepmother. Nothing could be said to calm Paul down. He just continued to scream. During the commotion, I slowly walked into Paul's room, where the TV was still on, set to VCR mode. Only the tape had been stopped. After a moment of hesitation, I pressed rewind and the VCR buzzed until the tape quickly stopped with a loud click. I could still hear Paul screaming in the distance while his father tried desperately to reach him. My finger hovered over the play button, then pressed it. The video was recorded in a foreign country, probably Mexico, because I instantly recognized the language as Spanish. A man was speaking to a group of dangerous-looking locals. After coming to an agreement, the man handed the leader of the group a thick wad of American dollars. As the man turned towards the camera, smiling, I knew without a doubt that it was Paul's father. The video jumped forward to show a Mexican man on his knees, begging in Spanish while Paul's father stood behind him with a pistol pointed at the back of the skull. Before the Mexican man could say anything else, the trigger was pulled. Blood and brain coated the sandy ground. I was so entranced by what I had just seen, I didn't hear Paul's father as he entered the room. I looked up at him as he glanced at the TV, wincing with a flash of recognition before looking back down at me with guilt burned into his face. Paul's father personally drove me home that night. He gave me $200 and told me to keep my mouth shut about what I had seen. I never saw Paul again after that night. I had lost a friend, but I gained a fascination. I wasn't afraid of what I had seen on that video. I felt excited somehow, turned on even. It wasn't in a sexual way, it seemed more akin to a light bulb switching on. What was once hidden in the darkness suddenly becomes visible. The same could be said about the inner workings of a young mind. At that point, I could have cared less about the why. That's because I was more honed in on the how, as in, how would I be able to see more? As I grew up, challenging my extreme taste was almost like a hobby. If it was weird or gross, you'd be sure that I'd become aware of it somehow. Snuff films, suicide videos, body mutilation, fringe pornography. I was pretty much a jack of all trades when it came to the shit that you wished you could unsee. Now, you can't throw a rock without hitting some YouTube knockoff overstuffed with questionable video content. Back then, I was on the ground floor when it came to navigating the sketchy side of the internet. I would spend hours doing the online legwork, searching dozens of forums, chatting with weirdo after weirdo, until I got pointed in the right direction. There was something about putting in the work that made those inevitable discoveries so enjoyable. I endured mind-numbing stretches of time at the mercy of dial-up and faulty connections, but with a little luck and a lot of patience, I began to amass a digital collection that would only evolve with the functionality of the internet. Dial-up gave way to DSL, and DSL gave way to high-speed cable. When it was all said and done, my specialty-built hard drive contained over 2,000 files, all meticulously organized by type and rating. Yeah, I had my own rating system, under the name and info of every video. There would also display a series of black stars that numerically ranged from 1 to 5. Astoundingly meh, so-so, interesting, thoroughly fucked up. I managed to condense the collection down to mostly the good stuff, nothing but 3 and 4 star ratings. However, in all my days of surfing the filth wave, I never encountered a video that I felt deserved 5 stars. My nightmare-inducing hobby would end when I met Kate. I wasn't in the market for a girlfriend, but she just sort of clung to me. What started as a college fling became a 5-year relationship that ended in holy matrimony. We had only been living together for a month when she stumbled onto the collection and almost had a brain aneurysm. To this day, I don't know why the stuff wasn't password protected. I thought personal boundaries were a thing. Apparently, she didn't get the memo. After crying in her bedroom with the door locked for 2 hours, Kate gave me a simple ultimatum. Either your fucked up videos go or I do, she would say while wiping her still puffy eyes. The things we do for love. Deleting those videos was the hardest thing that I ever had to do. Jump ahead 2 years into the world of marital domestication, and things were surprisingly good. Kate and I made a pretty cute couple. It was a strange new life that consisted of dinner parties, double dates, and husband and wife Netflix binging. After a lengthy withdrawal period, my dark obsession faded back into the shadows, but like any good addiction, there's always that thing waiting around the corner to trigger a relapse. I was on my lunch break when my coworker Jerry started ranting passionately about the hidden mysteries and unspeakable horrors of the deep web. I usually ignored Jerry when he talked, but that day I couldn't have tuned him out if I wanted to. Of course, the sad son of a bitch hadn't actually gotten on himself. Like any good millennial, the bulk of Jerry's opinion had been formed based on a fistful of YouTube top 10 videos. Even so, I couldn't help the feelings of intrigue that began to form in the pit of my stomach, causing me to abandon the majority of Kate's world-famous tuna salad sandwich. While I wasn't completely ignorant to the existence of the deep web, the concept had only become popular in the last few years, and from what I understood, it required skills far beyond my basic computing abilities. According to Jerry, that wasn't true. All it took was a decent internet connection and a web browser so that you could download a program called Tor. I was facing a weekend to myself. Kate would be heading out of town to a fertility clinic, conveniently located 5 hours away. She'd use the remainder of time as an excuse to pester her sister who lived only 30 minutes away from the clinic. One thing I failed to mention at this point would be Kate and I's struggle to have a baby. Of course, when I say us, I really mean her. While it was a fact of life that she was unable to get pregnant, I found it hard to make myself care. I never wanted kids, even though I never told Kate that. She made me get my sperm checked out, and when my little swimmers came back with a perfect bill of health, the fault would lie with Kate. It wasn't a fault that she couldn't seem to look past, no matter how much I tried to help sweep said problem under the rug. Kate spent countless sleepless nights researching infertility treatments until she discovered the out-of-state clinic. I was shocked at the time when she made no attempt to drag me along with her. "It's just a consultation," she said. "No need to get your hopes up." In what seemed like a snap of the finger, I was home alone for the first time in years. I fucked around for the majority of the first day, walked around in my underwear, watched porn, and downed a half case of beer that didn't have the word light across the box. It was on the second day that I remembered Jerry's deep web speech at work. This got me curious. I watched a brief YouTube tutorial on how to access the deep web and was shocked just how simple everything was. I downloaded the Tor program. I watched a brief YouTube tutorial on how to access the deep web and was shocked just how simple everything was. I downloaded the Tor program. The whole thing worked as its own special browser that used a number of IP addresses to bounce through so that your computer's actual location wouldn't be traced. At least that's how I think it worked. The majority of pages on the deep web aren't indexed, so to access them, you have to find a page containing links and info. I went through a page called the Hidden Wiki. It was a collection of pages indexed by category. To be honest, nothing really jumped out at me as fucked up, unless you counted the insane amount of kiddie porn sites that were casually listed as if shit like that was commonplace. The deep web is a pedophile's amusement park, and while I prided myself on my debauched personal taste, the concept of child pornography always made me sick. Aside from the copious amounts of CP, the listings were populated with hacktivism sites, as well as a plethora of Bitcoin accepting vendors that specialized in everything from illegal drugs to military-grade firearms. I scoured the rest of the Hidden Wiki, only to find dead links and pages with misleading titles. As I sat at the desk, glued to the monitor, I found myself utterly bored, and yet there was this nagging urge to pull more from the tangled ball of yarn. From the countless stories that traveled the surface internet, the deep web was supposed to be a place of nightmares. If you ask for my opinion during those frustrating moments, my summary would have been simple: unimpressed. The hours flew by and I continued stumbling from site to site. By that point I had come across this list of unlisted pages. The list contained over 50 onion links. Every click was like playing Russian roulette. There was a page that displayed a handbook for pedophiles. It was the Wild West, and the fucking kitty diddlers had no problem laying claim to their territory. There was a page that showed you how to make a bomb from items around the house. There was a page that literally was nothing but a continuous repeating animation of a spinning dildo, a populated social network for people who liked fucking horses, and a white supremacist recruitment page, jam-packed with propaganda about a supposed race war that was lingering around the corner. The last link shot me over to a chat server. Nothing fancy. It looked like the kind of thing you would have seen in the AOL days of the internet. I came up with a nickname and logged on to the server. There weren't that many people active, and what individuals I did try to talk to either ignored me or logged off altogether. All but one. I hooked up with a fellow traveler that went by the nickname King Nomad. The following is how our conversation went. "What's up? Looks like someone got that new car smell." "Huh? What's up? You sound like a fucking tourist. Let me guess. You read an article on BuzzFeed about the deep web and your little dick got hard at the idea of being naughty for a change. You kiss your mother with that mouth? Only when she says please. So I'm new. Why, is that a deep web no-no? Careful, little piggy. Not all the wolves here huff and puff. What's that supposed to mean? If you're looking for adventure, start a Tumblr account. I'm looking for videos. Sorry, Ice Cream Man, but I don't do guided tours of Sesame Street. I'm not into kid shit. What are you into? Violent stuff, snuff, necro, fucked up BDSM, torture, you know, all the parts of a balanced breakfast. You're funny. Sure those eyes aren't bigger than your stomach? I have a healthy appetite. What is it? King Nomad didn't type a response. A few seconds after I sent him the message, I watched the anonymous individual nickname vanish from the server. I was hesitant at first as to what the link would lead to. Was it a point in the right direction, or some virus-laced prank to punish me for being a newbie? Fuck it, I said to myself as I clicked the link. What I saw next was an all-black screen with a cluster of red text in the middle. Satan's sluts. His gifts are boundless. Their flesh is currency. Tread carefully, for there is no God here. I clicked enter and the screen shifted to display another box of text. The whores of Eve will bend the knee and whisper in the dark. The master then shall grant the wish and tear their soul apart. Scrolling below the fucked up rhyme, I saw pictures. Dozens and dozens of pictures, all of them black and white, all of them women. The many images arranged in a condensed grind that allowed you to take in the full scoop of just how many were up on the screen. Hovering the pointer over each picture caused the image to expand, giving you a detailed look at every entry. Under every picture was a name and a number. The diverse group of women was made up of every conceivable ethnicity, color, and body type, and while the women's outward appearance provided them with a physical distinction, the pictures would share another connecting thread. Every one of the women appeared to be roughed up and battered, and completely nude, all of them forcing a blank, emotionless smile while their uncovered skin showcased an altering mesh of bruises, scrapes, and scratches. At first, the patchwork of black and white pictures appeared to be composed of strangers, but as I clicked from women to women, expanding picture after picture, the unrecognizable soon became familiar. Some of the women were actresses, while others turned out to be chart-topping pop stars and famous YouTube personalities whose numbers of subscribers ran upwards into the millions. One of the women looked just over the cusp of 18. She was Asian. She was also sporting a busted bottom lip. The name underneath read, Karen Matsui. Her face wouldn't have garnered a second thought if I hadn't recently watched her on TV win the USA Silver Olympic medal in arithmetic gymnastics. As I glanced downward, my eyes widened as they made their way down to the bottom corner of the screen. There was a row of small, clickable numbers, indicating that the page I currently viewed was just one page in a digital booklet. The page number started from 1 and ended with 47. A gut feeling led me to believe that 47 was just the halfway point. Before I would be able to click anything else, a black box appeared on screen, accompanied by the words "Live feed in progress. Would you like to view?" My hand twitched with an involuntary spasm as I directed the arrow-shaped pointer towards the yes button and pressed down. The rows of black and white pictures were replaced with one single image. The jagged sections, strange curvature, and uneven dirt floor exposed the likelihood that the visible location wasn't part of a building, but a hollowed-out cave. Flames flickered from the ends of our 4 medieval torches held in place by iron scuns bolted in the 4 corners of the room, serving as its sole source of light. The minutes that passed seemed like an eternity, until 4 figures entered the room. 4 wore flowing white cloaks. Their features were obscured by the attached hood. At the center of these hooded, white figures was a single person, shorter and thinner than the surrounding 4. The center figure was also covered from head to toe in a cloak, only instead of white, the lone individual was garbed in a crimson red that stood out even more from the room's lack of color. One of the white hoods broke from the near-perfect formation and stood face to face with the mysterious person in red. The figure in red pulled back the hood, exposing the concealed identity. All the air rushed out of my body at once, because there was no confusing the thin features that made up the woman's small face. I shook my head and wiped my eyes in an attempt to rid myself of anything that could have obscured my vision, but when I looked back at the screen, she was still there. Kate, my wife! Frantic thoughts burned holes into my brain. My mind raced through scenarios involving Kate getting kidnapped or worse. Then, like a shifting water current, I began humoring the possibility that what I had witnessed was the byproduct of some advanced hallucination that had suddenly taken over my vision. I glanced back at the screen only to once again lock eyes on my wife, her form still hidden under the baggy cloak. As much as I wanted to pick up the phone and dial Kate's number, some invisible force held me in place, forcing all of my attention in the direction of the footage. The white hood unfastened a latch near Kate's neckline, instantly causing the crimson loque to fall from her body. My wife stood between the hooded figures with nothing to show but her bare flesh. The image of Kate's naked body shouldn't have been a revelation, but I could see the subtle changes across her glistening skin. She was flushed, and her nipples stood firm and erect, the same way they always got when she hit that peak of sexual arousal. As if directed by an inaudible command, the other 3 white hoods moved from their stationary position. The 3 suddenly took hold of Kate, turning her around so that her exposed back faced the 4th hood. The 4th hood drew a small knife and began to carve a small, strange symbol at the base of her tailbone. Kate winced, then eventually screamed out. None of the 3 hoods wouldn't loosen their grip until the 4th completed the task. Now released, Kate got back to her feet. Blood ran down her right leg as she stood face to face with the 4th hood once more. While the footage was low quality, the sound radiated from the computer speakers in crystal clear clarity. So clear, it allowed me to hear the detached white hood speak in the deep tone of a detached older man. "You must give yourself fully, and you will be rewarded," the hooded figure whispered. Kate nodded, and the hoods began to chant in a language that I had never heard before. They chanted loud, they chanted in unison. The repetitive sound went on for a few minutes until a loud roar echoed through the stone walls. All 4 hoods scattered to different corners of the room, placing their hands to the ground while still continuing to chant. It entered the room. The creature stood over 7 feet tall. The top half resembled a muscular man with leathery, gray skin sketched across a barrel-chested frame. The bottom half was covered in thick, matted fur. The creature didn't have feet. It had dark brown hooves, clanking as the hideous monster moved further into the room. All of the nightmarish imagery, what chilled me to my core was the thing's head. Between 2 massive shoulders sat the unnaturally large head of a goat. 2 bone-sharp horns extended from its forehead. The front half of its face was long and exaggerated, a molded perversion, stretching beyond the physical limits of nature. Between the gap of rotted teeth hung its filthy black tongue. The deteriorated organ dripped discolored saliva into a puddle on the floor as it eyed Kate hungrily. Kate walked up to the creature, eerily unafraid, and kissed it. My stomach turned inside out as Kate and the creature embraced each other in a sexual fury. She jumped up, straddling the monster, as it grabbed a fistful of hair and yanking her head back. The creature licked the visible neck, setting off a chain reaction of pleasurable moans from deep within Kate. Then it looked at me through the screen and smiled. I blacked out after that. When I came to, the computer screen was just displaying the blank, white image of a dead Link. I hit the refresh button, but nothing happened. Then my mind flashed to my wife. I picked up the phone and dialed Kate's number, only to get her voicemail. I dialed again and again, until she finally picked up.
"Is everything okay?"
Kate said in her normal tone. My mouth had turned to cotton, but I eventually managed to get the words out. "I just saw..."
"Just saw what?"
Kate asked, confused. "Are you okay?" I said quietly as my hand sweatily gripped the base of the phone.
"Yeah,"
she said.
"I just got on the highway. I'll be back for dinner."
And she was back in time for dinner. I hugged her like we hadn't seen each other in years. I looked at her, and she looked back at me. Everything seemed fine. It seemed better than fine. She seemed better than fine. She was practically glowing with excitement. Instead of the usual at-home meal fare, we went out that night. There, even though I tried to act like my normal self, my mind couldn't help but replay the video footage of her and that monster. How it kissed her, how she kissed it back, how she screwed it. I kept asking myself if it was real, or had I imagined the whole thing. "I'm pregnant," she exclaimed with the enthusiasm of a human megaphone. She went on to explain that it had been some kind of miracle. She found out when she went to the clinic. She told me she'd explain in more detail after she came back from the bathroom. As she got up from the table, her shirt lifted slightly, exposing a small patch of skin between the fabric and her jeans. I caught a glimpse of her circular bandage covering a small area near her tailbone. I lost my appetite that night. It hasn't come back since. Hey guys, thank you all for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that subscribe button and join the Nightmare Army. I'm always looking for new soldiers in my Nightmare Nation. So guys, I hope everybody enjoyed the video, and I'm not gonna lie, this story kind of really scared the shit out of me as I was reading it. It is... yeah, kind of reminded me of the new video game that's coming out called Agony, that last part of the story. Just creepy as shit, gave me goosebumps as all hell. I mean, actually, as I was narrating the ending of the story, my sister, like, walked into my room and she's just like, "What in the fuck are you reading?" And I was just like, "Go away! The devil's gonna get you!" But, anyways, guys, just a little bit of an update here. Tomorrow, I don't know if there's gonna be a video just because I have to go to the doctor, and you know how long those guys take. They usually take forever in the waiting room, and even more when you're sitting in the office waiting for your impending doom. It's nothing serious, I'm only joking. But I'm just letting you guys know so that way you're not surprised. If I have enough time, I'm going to try to squeeze some stories out, but if not, then I'm sorry, guys. But anyways, guys, thank you all for watching, and just remember, the best ideas always come out of nightmares.